I was thinking once upon a time in the forest, and then I thought of Dame Hazelbark, and then my mood got a lot more sour. However, Posesi is going to be on the Rogue, like you were saying, which has one of those matchups where it feels like there is a very specific turning point. There's always going to be one turn where if the Druid manages to scale that hurdle and come out of it unscathed, or at least not dead, then there's a point of no return for the Rogue, it feels like, because the treasures just get a bit too powerful. The build from Posesi is, however, running Scabs compared to some of the lists it's not running Scabs, unlike what we saw from Trahizan. So comeback potential post-treasures is going to be a lot more difficult. However, he's off to a pretty good start with the Skulker in the opener, and Hyung himself has also found Ramp. That's a smuggler, though.
That is an absolute crusty smuggler for Posesi, with the ability to go, Quest, Skulker, and then double Smuggler on turn 3 if he wants to for a 2-drop and a 3-drop is, that's a lot of tempo.
Sign me up for that. Meanwhile, Hyung thinking about whether he wants to bloom the wild growth, which I think is not worth it whatsoever because he's not able to immediately play Cold Tooth Mine the turn after with the overload. So I think it's more likely that he goes Cold Tooth Mine, wild growth, into bloom a Kazaka-san at the turn where he has 6 mana.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think that although picking low is sometimes underutilized, I will say, in Druid. You know, you don't always want to play an 8-mana 8/8 on curve if you're under a lot of pressure. In this instance, I'm right there with you. This hand just screams Kazaka-san because there's nothing else to effectively spend your mana on here.
The calm before the storm. Okay. Scale is now a whole different game plan available because Hyung can wild growth this turn, then bloom Scale next turn, which is a very difficult board for Quest Rogue to deal with this early.
Yeah, it depends what we're looking at for Posesi. If he gets like high health, low attack minions, I think you just stick with the Kazaka-san. Off of the smuggler, I mean. But if he gets high attack, low health, then yeah, it probably is just Scale of Onyxia, because you can end up with board control at the end of it as well as a clear.
I think it also depends on how much Posesi commits, because if there is a 2-drop and a 3-drop hitting the board plus the smuggler body, I think Hyung might say this is too much pressure. I'm forced off of Kazaka-san into the Scale clear. But if it's only 1 proc of the smuggler, he might wait. And for Posesi, the turn is not clear either, because we could see him go operative instead and then try to greed the smuggler on higher cost minions.
Okay.
This also allows him to save coin for the next turn.
It does, yeah. I mean, depending what it gets, he could even use coin here. Like, coin mole is kind of tempting. It still works out perfectly with the mana for the next turn. In terms of the smuggler, the only problem is you're delaying Battle Master for a turn, which potentially costs you damage. But I want to say that an extra 2, 4, maybe even like 6 damage from the mole is probably worth offsetting that.
I agree, but spicy draw for Hyung now. The thing is, if he goes Bloom Scale, he's still able to overgrowth next turn, and that leads up very cleanly into a Kazaka-san.
What to do?
So I kind of like the Scale, honestly.
Okay, I guess it puts him far enough ahead, right? And it's the kind of minions that Quest Rogue struggles to deal with, because Sap is bad, obviously Assassin's not that great. No Pen Flinger's Prize Plunderers, any little damaging effects like that to clear them off. So you know what? I'm on board.
Enough pressure, or minion presence, I should say, that Hyung has gotten himself to buy himself the time to play Overgrowth. But Posesi is now going to generate 3-drop and 4-drop.
Smells like breakfast.
He had 1 more mana. This Shadow Sap could have been huge. But oh my goodness, that thing has Rush, right?
No, it gains Rush, I think.
Oh, it gains Rush.
If it has 1 more attack. But yeah, Divine Shield is still not bad at all, and just stepping it back to hand, absolutely. Let's go again next turn.
Well, Hyung has 1 plan and 1 plan only. He committed last turn to the overgrowth into Kazakhstan game plan. The problem is his next draw was really bad. Another overgrowth is the opposite of what you want to see. You want card draw, Moonlit Guidance for the post-Kazakhstan turn. And he is running out of time, right? Because the most he can do is clear off the 3-4 and the 2-3 here. It's not great.
Which is okay. You know, that means he's only taking 3 on this turn. He knows there's going to be another smuggler, but he can pray that that's the only really threatening minion. Like, if he gets Smuggler plus Informant, yeah, you're losing that game of Hearthstone. That's fine, you just move on to the next one. But anything outside of that, and it's still, I want to say, pretty salvageable.
All right. Just looking at this Battle Master with a lot of anxiety, but of course Hyung doesn't see that himself. And because of the Battle Master, I expected Posesi to play the Smuggler on the left of the 3-5, which I still don't know the name of, I'm sorry.
First Blade of Rin, I think.
Yes!
That one?
You're amazing. Been playing Cardinal lately?
No, I mean, just when Jambra's playing it between games on stream. But yes, I agree. It's just mispositioning there from Posesi. Or I guess we should call it the cards are incorrectly statted for his correct positioning. Would be a better way to put it for our world champion.
So, you wanted that 5-cost minion to have 0 attack?
Yes, exactly. He shall make it so.
The cards must adjust for Posesi. Now you know his World Championship card is going to be a 5-mana 0 something.
Yeah, if this minion gets Wind Fury, gain +10 attack.
Oh, that's spicy. Well, Kaz in a dream.
Kaz in a dream.
Actually, Posesi not committing the Wicked Stab is a big deal, right? Because if he had... Hyung would have been at 16, and Posesi would have had, I guess, 6 damage that's copyable with the Wind Fury. Sorry, 12, and then another 6. So not Wicked Stabbing means that he possibly doesn't have the kill next turn.
I mean, it was just a very messy turn for Posesi, all things considered. Like, with the Battle Master next turn, like, this definitely should have not ended in the way it could, because he should be pushing lethal next turn. He could have had, even without the Wicked Stab, if he'd positioned correctly, that would have been exactly 20 damage, right? With the 10, the 6, the 1, and the 3.
Well, I see no wands, no Books of the Dead here for Hyung, and he had an option to take Vampiric Fangs. I feel like he should have if it were there, because that was a way to maybe survive.
Is this still equal?
Oh, he bumps it in. Yeah.
Oh, it's exact. Okay, fair enough. Just manages to be enough. I thought it might be just off, but with the attack first, then the bump in. Fair enough, Posesi. I guess he'd figured out that it was still lethal if Kazakhstan did come down. So you know what? I take it back. He figured it out all along, even though it felt a little bit weird. And if Kazakhstan hadn't come down, it wouldn't have been lethal then, right? It still felt like it was like a mistake, especially given that he didn't know what minion he was going to get before he played the Smuggler.
Right.
Even with that all said, it works out in the end for him here, and he gets a 1-0 start to the series, which is absolutely fantastic. Any win he can get over this Druid is putting him in a great spot, honestly, because with the bans factored in, which was his Priest gone, okay, fair enough. He's then got Druid and Shaman. His own Druid, as we've said, should be very well situated for the mirror with those Glowflies slotted in there as well. And while Shaman against Druid is not necessarily the best matchup, hey, if you can get yourself an early Wild Pool Caverns, that's the easiest matchup in the world. And so targeting this Druid is not necessarily out of the question still for Posesi.
It is true. It's really, really tough to rely on that, though, because there are definitely games Kazakhstan Druid of either variant can put together where they just scam you. Maybe it's turn 1 guff into very early Kazakhstan into the best treasures ever. Maybe it's discovering additional removal from their nature studies. Posesi, with this particular version, of course, is built a bit better for the mirror, though. So a soft target on the armor version of Kazakhstan Druid, I think, is very reasonable to label his lineup as. And I've only noticed just now that it was actually the Priest band away. Sad. We won't get to see Rally or Drekthar. However, we do get to see some good old APAC Glowfly action. We are talking Fungal Fortunes into full board Glowfly.
That's right. We've come known for it. We can't let down the fans now. Posesi needs to deliver with the goodness of that deck. And I mean, I think what is it against the Demon Hunter? Probably not the absolute heart of the game plan. You're still going to go for it, but especially against the Il'gynoth variant, which I'd forgotten that Hyung is going for. I suppose that complicates things actually a little bit more, because I was going to say that against the Fel variant, you're probably not going for Glowfly because you have time to play Kazakhstan and go for the win that way. But against Il'gynoth, it's a little bit quicker of a deck most of the time in terms of how it actually reaches lethal. It completes quest quicker, gets an OTK online quicker. Maybe you do have to go for something a little bit more bold, like hope that you can stick a Glowfly in the mid game.
Close. I feel like given the option between going all in on Glowfly and going all in on Kazakhstan, Posesi would lean towards Kazakhstan just because of Immolation Aura being too big of a threat. So I wouldn't mind him tossing the whole hand, looking for Cold Tooth, Fungal, Guff, that type of thing.
I think, though, for Posesi, we can consider this either a full mull or hold on to studies would be reasonable. I think Glowfly on the play just feels a little too flimsy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to see him keep it either. If he had Fungal to go along with this hand, then we could start talking. But even then, like, Glowfly is so conditional in that you need the full hand to really get impactful enough board presence from it, and then you also need them to not have Immolation Aura for all your efforts to go to waste. The keep on the studies, though, like you mentioned, still decent. Maybe I was a bit too greedy thinking to throw that away, but it will let him get the Overgrowth online earlier. This is very spicy, though, because Alignment is a pretty good anti-DH card.
It is. If you can get it down, like, obviously if they can play the Kurtrus and reduce all the cards they draw, it's not. And because of that, I do think it's still best in shell. Even aside from that, like, it's a very long time away. You're playing the Celestial Alignment. It's on the same turn as Kazakhstan, and you can just trade the best in shell for one of your Kazakhstan treasures later on. But I love that he considered it, because it wasn't ridiculous, I don't think.
Yeah. You start to kind of look at it, say, wait a minute, and then you take a look at your own deck list and think, this doesn't help me that much either.
True.
So in the end, I think it is a good decision there. Hyung, with the studies played over Quest, that's interesting here, because the only situations I see studies preloaded is when you feel like you can get a glide into Outcast from the left because of that. But even then, that's not ridiculous, right? Because if Hyung had hit glide, his entire left side of the hand is tradables and card draw spells that are cheap, so it's fine. He ends up with the next best thing to glide, which is another card draw option, and looks like he will be able to progress Quest Stage 1.
Okay, so trade the Guild Trader and then
Evaluate.
Yeah, because this double jump actually probably wants to be saved for next turn to try and hit exactly glide. So I really like that he's actually just holding off here for a turn on the double jump, even though it unlocks the Sigil Runner from the left-hand side of his hand.
Yeah, I like this a lot too. The thing is, usually you expect the Druid to let you know when they have Kazakhstan in hand by playing Capture Cold Tooth Mine. Posesi had the Kazakhstan naturally in the opener, though, so Hyung may or may not take that information into account. However, the glide is a bit too juicy that I feel like he is still going to play it here. Question is, what other cards does he dump? You could go very aggressive and use a Fellscream Blast. The problem is you cannot dump the I-Beam because it will make the glide cost 4 again. I mean, I guess you could still do that and the coin, but I think I'd rather see him toss an Immolation Aura.
Is it definitely glide? Like, he has no information about his opponent's hand right now. Cold Tooth Mine hasn't been played. There's only 5 cards in hand. Like, I guess it's still probably good enough. Your opponent has just been ramping up and they're probably not going to draw too many cards, but for me, it wasn't like an insta easiest glide in the world. I was looking at just going for another level of quest completion first, perhaps.
I mean, that's the thing, right? What were his other options for quest completion? It was the double jump on the left. That was the only other card draw into unlocking the Sigil Runner. And that double jump could have gotten him Glide too. So I think it was completely fine here. But I'm not sure I agree with him not dumping any of the hand before that, because he even floats a mana at the end here. I was looking at tossing either I-Beam or Immolation Aura. No matter which one he did, it would spend all of his mana, I think.
Just Glowfly. Okay, fair enough. I guess you want them to clear off a 6 minion board, then you let rip with the scale to fully populate the board again. But it's not great.
Definitely isn't. And this is probably Hyung's thinking behind not dumping Immolation Aura, but unfortunately he doesn't have it in hand right now. Has to go searching. Probably start off with the trade of the Guild Trader.
You ever play the Guild Trader to activate the Fellscream Blast to actually get some guaranteed clear?
1-3 Glowflies, but
Saves you from Arbor up.
I feel like it saves you from immediately dying to Arbor up, but you're still in a terrible position, right, if they have it, because they can VT down your Guild Trader. You still haven't progressed your quest, and they're pushing face damage incrementally. I feel like he needs Immolation Aura here.
Okay. He's taunting us. Which of the two lines is he going for? He does end up playing it. Wow, honestly, I've been brought around to your side of things, but I guess with both a Sigil Runner and a draw from the Tusk Piercer next turn, he can maybe turn it around and get the quest completed next turn. But with Solar Arbor now for Posesi, he can push a full 18 damage here. Very, very much closing in on lethal, but turns out for Hyung, whether or not he knew it, this was the play to survive the turn, I guess.
I guess, but he's really still not winning the game,
yeah.
I don't feel like. I mean, the Solar, of course, makes it look even scarier, but even a singular Arbor up would have been so problematic for Hyung here. He needs exactly Arcanist Immolation now, and even then, additional damage to clear the turtles.
Oh, Skull is so expensive, but I mean, I guess that's the kind of card that can get you the perfect runner.
If he gets Morg, Arcanist, Immolation, I think that's the clear. That would deal 9 AoE.
No.
Nope. Ay, just like that. Hyung loses with the Demon Hunter as well with the Glide.
What is happening? Posesi just coming in again for another season. Absolutely no expression. We rinsed it all out of him after his World Championship win, and now he's here just taking names once again. 2-0 up against Hyung in his first week of Grandmasters and showing him no mercy whatsoever, with just the Shaman, the Burn Shaman left over as the one final deck for Posesi.
He's just unbothered. Perpetually unbothered. I have no better adjective to describe Posesi. The only time we'll ever get to see him smile is when he does something even greater than winning a world championship, which means having to win a second world championship back-to-back.
I mean, we get to see him smile then, and get to see him smile when he makes horrendous misplays. Those are the only times we get a little bit of mirth out of him. But here we can see the Burn Shaman that he's decided to build. Pretty standard stuff, all things considered, with the one Primal Dungeoneer slotted in there, which, you know, honestly, I don't mind. I quite like Primal Dungeoneer just because I think doubling down on card draw as much as possible is what makes this deck good. Like, you want to draw a whole bunch turns 1 through 5, and then you start doing the freezing nonsense and really starting to lock out any board-based decks, and Primal Dungeoneer helps you do that beautifully.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm a fan of an even weirder Burn Shaman list with a Spirit Mount from the mini set.
Okay.
However, I am a weirdo in that I have cut Windchill from my deck just to make the Primal Dungeoneer even more consistent, right? I run 2 copies of that. So you have less non-nature spells in your deck. I have not been having the greatest success with it, but sometimes the buff from the Spirit Mount is great. And it is written nowhere on the card or even on the hover what the stats of the Death Rattle Spirit Raptor are. So people just oftentimes don't know. It's a 1-2, by the way, but yeah. I digress.
Good luck. I wish you the best out there.
Thank you. Well, Hyung also needs some well wishes because that's an Il'gynoth kind of trapping the left side of his hand. Yes, you can trade away the Guild Trader, but if he is going to get gliding in this game, it has to be off the top in outcast position and playable.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but it's not bad either. Like, this is the kind of game plan that can arrive you at turn 5 Kurtrus if he gets turn 3 and 4 quest progression. Unlikely, of course, but with a 0-mana sigil, not out of the question. Wow, but he doesn't play it. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't believe in the quest progression the next turn. He technically only has one further piece of card draw in the Guild Trader here, so a bit more patient, it looks like. Whereas for Posesi, the pick here is not obvious because Steward of Scrolls oftentimes is tempting just to play as the shape of minion that's a bit annoying for Demon Hunter to deal with, but he has his Wildpaw Cavern already earmarked for the next turn, so he does end up taking the Phoenix. I don't think he'll play it here, though. That can be saved for a big combo turn.
Yeah, I agree completely. Like, I think if you're not going to play it here, I probably would have ended up on the Novice Zapper, just because I think most of the time it's a slightly more efficient way to deal burst damage. But I mean, Posesi has consistently been a Phoenix gamer, if I remember correctly, and so I'm willing to see what he can pull out of this one. Like you say, it's a higher skill ceiling, but it can pull off very, very powerful combos.
Yes, I always respect the Phoenix enjoyers. Wildpaw Cavern into Multicaster, but the caster only has 2 spell schools in it right now. It's only nature without, right?
Yeah, correct.
Sigil into Sigil.
Not bad.
So he can get the guaranteed progression with the swing and double tradable.
Which, I mean, honestly, at this point, it's all but guaranteed that he can get double progression, that he can get, quest progression on 4 and 5 as well, like with a double jump in hand, a sigil as well. Like, I think it's just guaranteed at this point with the kind of outcast cards that you have in your deck in the form of Glide and Spectral Sight. And so for the most part, it's just about trying to survive through to then, which should be pretty easy, actually, again, with Talented Arcanist and Immolation Aura and a Moarg, if he needs that as well to potentially go with the Fellscreen Blast. Hyung should be surviving very easily through this mid-game.
I wouldn't say very easily. Like, yes, the clears are there, but the problem is that the board is being parsed out turn by turn. The way that Wildpaw Cavern works is actually so annoying for a lot of these control decks to deal with, because a lot of the time they would much rather you just vomit out all of your threats together. So one big sweeping board clear can clean them all up. But Posesi can navigate this in such a way where he is playing 2 to 3 threats every turn, and that could be enough to bait out one big board clear where Hyung might not necessarily have the second one right after.
Raven, what is that card? We need help again.
No lightning bolt on it. Or is there? Wait, there is.
I don't think there was. That's the Phoenix that has the bolt on.
Oh, that's the Phoenix. Okay, my bad. The second pick, though, another Phoenix seems like overkill. Lady Vag kind of fits the curve. Not really. He's overloaded the next turn, so it's not super clean with multicaster. Yeah, no lightning bolt on it. We don't need to know. It's just a 2/4.
Good stuff. Like you say, a little bit annoying with the way these minions come out, but I think it shouldn't be too far away from going for, well, quest progression, like I said, is the easy part, but there's reasonable expectation that he could get clear and quest progression at the same time if he gets like Spectral Sight here off of the double jump. It becomes a lot easier.
So you're looking at double jump into Spectral, into that discounts to the Immo, right? Or Or does it not?
No, it won't, because it's the last level of quest. So maybe I'm inventing some mana here.
Right.
Okay, that's Glide. Interesting.
Definitely not playable in this spot. I do think it has to be at least a partial clear here, but it is very problematic for Hyung that there's still one more staggered coming and the Phoenix waking up. So committing Immolation Aura here would mean that he needs to find something to go along with the Fell Scream Blast on the next turn.
Wow, look.
Wow. Glide's here? Dang, okay.
Man, that is crazy. He's tanking so much damage now on this turn, whereas he could have just gone for like Moog clear. And I don't know, it starts to feel a little inconsistent in terms of what Hyung is trying to go for, because the turn before this one, he didn't end with Sigil of Alacrity, right? Which would have made the completion of the quest on that turn a lot easier to do alongside the clearing at the same time. Whereas this way, he has to go for a partial clear, still tank the full damage, and then glide his hand down to being really small and hope to be able to clear and heal on the same turn. It feels like kind of two halves of a game plan are being mushed together here in a way that doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I agree. It feels very disparate to what the early turns were leading up to. Even though the previous turn looked quite ugly in that you would float some mana, you'd have to choose between the board clear and the quest completion. If you don't choose board clear and instead just get Kurtrus, the question is, do you even have the liberty to play it on the next turn? And I'm going to say no, because you're tanking 8 here into a Phoenix Wake Up turn. Like, he can remove one staggered with I-Beam, but that feels like hardly enough.
Glide doesn't leave him much in the way of mana post-glide. So I think, how's this working? The Phoenix is going to wake up next turn. So if he goes Kurtrus plus I-Beam, he leaves 8 damage on the board. He'll be at 19 health. So there would need to be 11 from hand, which is... I mean, that's like 3 burn spells. It's not 2 burn spells because they do 5 damage apiece in the form of Bolt, Frostbite, and Serpent Shrine. So it's not a ridiculous play to go for, I don't think.
True. It is exactly 1 point above a significant breakpoint like you laid out. So if Hyung was ever going to take the risk, it has to happen this turn, because I don't think the Moarg double I-Beam play is winning him the game overall. Posesi has 2 pieces of burn. Can he find a third? He has Wind Chill to cycle and still the Lightning Bloom. If he gets Overdraft, Bolt, Frostbite, Serpent Shrine is not quite played. Oh, okay. There's the spell damage. Sorry, Serpent Shrine also would have worked.
Yes, I think there was exact mana to be able to figure out. And Posesi, the double thumbs up, comes in, 3-0s Hyung fresh off the block and shows him, you know what? This is my region, okay? You learn your place as the world champ. Absolutely wrecks his opponent. A 3-0 sweep, and he can go back to doing whatever he does when he's not playing Hearthstone on stream, as his next match is going to be tomorrow in the semi-finals. Absolutely dominant display. Couple of mechanical misplays aside, it felt like his lineup was just very, very strong. This was just good decks playing good cards on curve.
Yep. I mean, the mechanical misplay you were talking about is the position on the SI7 Smuggler, which I feel like Posesi was even aware of what he was doing, and he maybe just mind games himself a little bit too hard. Like, he tunneled like, okay, exactly, Kazaka-san is coming down, so to maximize the damage, I want the smaller minion in the middle to trade off. But I still don't know if that's exactly the right way to go for it. But of course, we're just nitpicking here, because what else can we say to possibly, like, expose any flaws Posesi might have? It just doesn't feel like there are any. He's just winning too much Hearthstone all the time. In terms of what he's doing when he's not winning, I'm pretty sure it's just hanging out in Alutamu stream / trash talking Alutamu on Twitter. But we still have one more series in the day, and it's featuring another player that has a very unique lineup in Bank Yugi. He shares the Quest Shaman with Mighty, which unfortunately in Mighty series we didn't even get to see. So maybe Bank Yugi can pull something off with it. We know it's been one of his pet decks